Hey, welcome to Real Talk, where I give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here and submit your question for a future episode. Got some good questions this week? Let's talk about it. Hey, Spencer, hope all is well. I enjoy listening to your channel. However, I am not a worship leader, but I have some interest in joining my church's team. I was wondering if you can give tips on what skills I should know before going into an audition, and if and when those skills are polished, how would you prepare for audition? I'm familiar with major, minor, and seventh bar chords, but I've never played in a band setting. I just jam along to tracks in my basement. Instrument in question is electric guitar. Thanks in advance. So someone wants to join the worship team and they've never played in a band before. What do they need to know? And I will preface my answer with this. It depends, because certain worship teams have different ways that they do things. So understand, whenever I give you my answer, I'm probably going to be answering from what I expect from my worship team. But just because I expect it from my worship team, your worship team leader might do things slightly different. And so either they might be more lenient, which will probably be the case because I'm not the most lenient worship team leader. I've been trying to improve on that. Or they might be more strict, I guess. And I don't say that to intimidate you. I just want you to have proper expectations of what you should know whenever you're going to join the worship team. So with that preface in mind, in my mind, let's see. If I had never played in a band before, let me just tell you this. This is the first thing that you need to know, is that you are never going to be ready to play in a band. You're never going to feel like you are 100% prepared to play in a band simply by practicing in your basement jamming along to tracks. And I don't want you to be discouraged by that statement. I want you to be encouraged by that statement that I don't know where you're at right now in your musicianship, but you're probably ready to try to join the worship team. And the way that you're going to learn to play with a band is to actually play with a band. And you can never actually play with other musicians until you're on the worship team, or if you find some avenue outside of the worship team to do that. So I wouldn't worry so much about that aspect of it, as long as you're cognizant of the fact that, hey, I'm not just this solo musician playing in my basement by myself, but I'm actually going to be playing with a band. So that's actually very good that you recognize that playing with a band is different than playing just on your own in your bedroom or in your basement or whatever. So let me assuage those fears. Man, I feel like I've been looking at a thesaurus or something with all these words I'm using. Let me assuage your fears. The second thing, though, that you do need to know is, and once again, this is dependent on the worship team. So I would just go and ask the worship team leader specifically, because if you were going to join my worship team, what would I tell you you need to know? I would say you need to know how to read a chord chart, because that's how we learn songs. So don't expect me to give you tabs and stuff, because that's not really the way that we function as a team. Now, maybe your worship team leader does give you tabs, and you'll never know until you ask the person who's in charge. But for me, I expect people, I would tell them this. I would say, hey, if you're going to join the worship team, here are the things that I'm going to give you to learn a song. I'm going to give you a recording that you can practice along with. I'm going to give you a chord chart, and I'm going to do it 2 weeks in advance so that you have time to learn it. So maybe that just tells you, at least for my team, what you would need to know. You would need to know, okay, I need to be able to listen to a recording, look at a chord chart, and learn a song in 2 weeks, and probably more like learn like 4 songs in 2 weeks, because that's how many we do during a service. So maybe ask yourself, can you do that? And honestly, like I said, with the whole playing with a band thing, you might not even know the answer to that question until you actually try. And so at the end of the day, maybe the answer is stop putting so much pressure on yourself. You will never know until you try. You don't have to be embarrassed if you audition for the worship team and you don't make it, but you will learn in that process. These are the things that I didn't know, and you will grow in your musicianship, and then you can always try out again, unless your worship team leader is a horrible person and they're like, you only get one shot, which they're not going to do that. They're going to be like, hey, you weren't quite ready yet, so let's give you 3 months to work on some things. Here are some things to work on, and then you can try it again. Now, if you want like super specific things, and once again, this is personal to my worship team, but it'll probably be similar to your worship team as well. If you want to see the expectations that I have for my worship team spelled out, then check out the worship team toolkit. I'll link it down in the description below. You can just look at that. That's like my worship ministry overview. I actually just went over it with a new worship team member last night, and I think maybe he was hesitant at first, but once I spelled out the expectations, he was like, "Oh, I already know all this stuff and I can do all this stuff." And then he wasn't as nervous about joining the worship team. So maybe the same will be true for you. And if you are a worship team leader who is watching this video and you're not the person who asked the question, feel free to use that worship team toolkit. It's my application form, so you can see what I have people fill out as they want to join my worship team. But then it's also my worship ministry overview / code of conduct sort of thing. So you can see the sort of expectations that I have for my worship team. Copy and paste that right into your own worship ministry. We're a small church and have multiple musicians who have been leading worship. What are your thoughts on who chooses songs for each Sunday? I've been coordinating music and musicians and am meeting with the pastor every week or two, but some leaders are looking for more autonomy in their choices of songs. Have you found any best practices for selecting songs with the team? I've gotten this question in different forms various times before, and I don't know if my views on it have changed. I think I've just kind of developed my view of it, and I hope you see on this channel that maybe I have been too black and white in the past, and I'm confessing that to you right now. Consider this a confession. Perhaps I've been too black and white in the past, and I'm trying to allow more room for varying ways of doing ministry as long as it doesn't compromise on the essentials. Because I understand, especially like in terms of this question, maybe for some teams, there should just be one person picking out the songs every week. Maybe on other teams, it does make sense for different people to pick out songs. But here is the guiding principle that you need to have. First of all, if you are going to have multiple people pick out songs for Sunday, it can't just be a free-for-all. You can't just be like, well, this person over here leads this set of songs, and this person over here leads this set of songs, and they never lead each other's songs, and at the end of the day, you've got like, okay, here's this group of people, they're going to sing hymns or something, and then this group of people is going to sing contemporary songs, just to use an example, and whenever these people are on, it's hymns, whenever these people are on, it's contemporary songs. No, we need to be unified as a worship ministry. One of the ways that we do that is through our song repertoire. It's the songs that we have to choose from. So when I hear some leaders are looking for more autonomy in their choices of songs, I would ask, is that like, hey, I just want to be able to sing whatever songs that I want to sing. And I'm just somebody who goes to the church, and I'm not even thinking about the theology of the songs. I'm not thinking about the implications of leading those songs. You know, we might do like a radio song and not a congregational worship friendly song. So at the end of the day, you have to know these leaders, and you have to be able to communicate what are the foundational principles for the songs that we pick if you want them to have autonomy in their picking, which I'm not even against. You know, this week, this Sunday, I'm resting my voice right now because I hurt my voice during the Christmas season, which that was like 2 months ago as of this video, 3 months ago as of this video coming out, but I'm filming this like at the end of January. Anyways, I hurt my voice at the beginning of the Christmas season, and another guy on my worship team is going to be leading. So last Sunday, I picked out the songs for him. This Sunday, I said, hey, Patrick, can you just pick out the songs? But the reason that I do that is because I know that Patrick and I are on the same page about what songs we're going to do. We work from the same worship song repertoire. I also know that he understands what a congregational worship song is, so I'm not worried about him picking out songs. So if you have your team set up that way where there's just specific leaders like this is your Sunday to lead, I would be okay with that as long as we're all working from the same fundamental understanding of what corporate worship is. Now, the other way I've heard it asked before, and maybe this is what you're asking, I don't know if there was enough detail in the question, is we've got 4 songs that we do in a service, and there's a different singer for every song, and every singer just wants to pick their own song during the service. In that case, I don't like to just let people sing their songs or pick their songs, because when a service is planned, it should be a cohesive unit. So if you're just trying to grab like, this person wants to sing this song, this person wants to sing this song, so on and so forth, it's not going to be cohesive. It's just going to be, it's not going to be planned out well. And so you have to structure things. And if you want to give them autonomy, maybe you're using the gospel-shaped worship service that I always talk about. I'll link a video about that down in the description below. But in that, I would be like, okay, here's the shape of our service. We start with adoration. So if you want to pick a song and you're singing the first song in the service, you need to pick a song about adoration. And then we move on to confession. And I would say, if you're picking scripture to read, or you're going to lead a speaking transition, or you're going to sing a song, it's going to be I want to say confessatory. I don't think that's a word. Sometimes my brain goes crazy when I'm filming these videos. It needs to be based on confession. It needs to be a song where we confess our sins to God, or whatever the structure is for your service, but you have to have a structure to your service so that you know how to communicate that to people. So I guess at the end of the day, don't give people complete autonomy to just do whatever they want if you're going to be leading the worship ministry, but you can give them autonomy within the defined boundaries of whatever the plan for your service is. Now, a lot of that starts with just being able to communicate the fundamental aspects of what it means to lead worship. And actually, in my worship ministry overview that I talked about before, I do that. So if you want to see what that looks like and have something to hand to your worship team and say, this is what we believe about worship, first of all, read it through on your own and make sure it's what you believe about worship. But one of the things in that is, hey, in our worship ministry, we serve others. And one of the ways that we serve others is through the songs that we pick. And so we want to lead with them in mind. Like, that is a foundational thing that someone would need to know if they're going to pick out songs for the service, so that they aren't just picking out like, hey, I like this song. So if you're interested in that, I'll link that down in the description below. Other than that, until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.